The Winter Tree by Georgina Lewis. Read by Jill Greenacre. Chapter 9. The Fruit. In September we had our fourth letter from Hester. It was addressed to me this time, and I got it from the postman and read it sitting on my bed upstairs before Mother even knew of its arrival. Dear Abby, I read. Thanks very much for your last letter. David is well and hope you're all well also at home. We're having a nice weather here. I wish you would come and see me, Abby. David is busy with work, ringing a bit now and then. He rang up here with some chaps from Devon on a tour last week. I miss you, Abby, and the others. Doctor says I am to have a baby at Christmas. Love from Hester. I sat on the side of my bed with her letter in my hands and blinked hard. I read it again, put it down, thought for a bit, picked it up again and read it through a third time with a growing sense of disbelief. Then I went down to Mother with it. Mother took the letter from my outstretched hand and read it through and through again, as I had done. Well, she said at last, her plump face flushed. Well, my dear life and soul, ain't that handsome? A baby, she says. Baby! She looked at me uncertainly. I must go and tell your father right away. Garfield, look at this here letter from Hester. And she was gone, panting up the orchard path to the woodshed, apron strings flying, her bunched hair dangling wispy streamers from an unravelling bun. Father emerged irritably, bow in hand, to see what all the commotion was about. A letter to Abby from Hester, cried Mother. Look, Garfield, she says she's to have a baby come Christmas. Here, look, 'tis here in black and white. She shoved the quivering letter under Father's nose. He took it and read it, nodding. Very nice, and handed it back to her. He began to make adjustments to a string, frowning with fierce concentration as he turned a peg with meticulous care, head sideways, listening intently. Mother stared at him aghast, turned on her heel and returned to me, presumably for more satisfactory appraisal of the news. Father, with a shrug, withdrew to his shed, and after a few minutes we heard him beginning to labour hymns with the fanaticism of a broody hen. Like a mother with a child was Father with his violin. He once let me hold the neck of it and pull the bow across the awkward strings. They scraped and shrieked under my fingers until he snatched it out of my hands and began to stroke it tenderly, soothing it like you would a baby. Then he put it under his chin and began to play a quick tune, light and cheerful, as if to reassure it. The bow in Father's hands hopping and leaping over the strings with a mellow confidence all its own. I believe it meant almost more to him than did his children. Mother could think of nothing but Hester's coming baby, and once she was over the initial surprise, she was seized by a frenzy of joy. My first grandchild, Abby, she said, hugging the letter to her bosom and fairly dancing round the room. Oh, my dear life, the thought of it! I shall dearly love to have a grandchild. I'd hoped for this on the quiet at the wedding, but I never thought they'd oblige me so soon. Just think of it, Abby, a dear little maid or a boy, I suppose it could be, couldn't it, with maybe Hester's goldy hair and that sweet smile of hers. Oh, my dear life, just think of it. It struck me afterwards as slightly odd that we should all think so naturally of Hester as one of our very own. She was, after all, only a cousin. Mother talked incessantly of her coming grandchild, and yet, strangely, nobody troubled to point out that Mother would in fact only be a great-aunt, and that by marriage only. I felt in my own mind that I was going to be an auntie, and so did Lissy, which was an odd thing when you come to think of it. Mother sent congratulations straight away, then heaps of advice and knitted garments by nearly every post. The living room was littered with scraps of baby wool, little bundles of white and yellow knitting and booty patterns. Father, when he could detach his mind from the carrots, violin rosin and wine yeast, seemed fairly interested, and that was a lot for him. Lissy was quietly delighted but practical as ever. Will Hester have the baby at home, do you think, Abby? She would ask, or would it be in the hospital? I don't know, I replied. At home, I should imagine, now they found a little house. I believe the nurse comes to your house to deliver the baby, if the conditions are all right, and if that's what the mother wants. It had made little difference to Perrin's life. Baby's being so far removed from his fear and experience as to be almost extraterrestrial. Mother spent all her spare time sewing the scraps of knitting into little coats and socks and minute vests, and I was commissioned to take them all hotfoot to Truro, along with assorted pots of jam and bramble jelly, 3 jars of green tomato pickle, a tin of baby powder, a yellowing shawl that had at various times been used for every one of us, a bunch of parsley, as many apples as I could carry, and a set of ancient leather reins with bells along the front. I got a Saturday off from the shop and set out on a golden day in early October. Summer had lingered late that year, and although the lanes were full of swirling leaves, it was still quite warm. I carried my bulging bags out into the lane and kissed Mother goodbye at the gate. "Now," she said, "have you got everything, my love? Have you put Lizzie's shortbread down the side so it don't get shaken about too much? And Thomas's mirror? Don't let it get broken, Abby. It will break his heart. Spent ages he did on fitting it into the frame all nice and neat. Got it safe, have you, my love?" Yes, I reassured her. "They're all safe. I got the jam at the bottom of the basket under the vest. Don't worry, they'll be all right." "Give her our dear love, Abby, won't you?" she urged. "Tell her to take care of my grandchild and make sure she gets enough to eat. She don't have to eat for 2, but eat sensibly. Plenty of salad and stuff. Tell her a baby needs more than porridge to grow on. You know what Hester is like. Porridge, 3 times a day that girl would eat if you gave her leave." "Yes, Mother," I promised, waving. Lissy, chin in hands, watched me enviously from an upstairs window and returned a plump palm. Thomas's curly head bobbed up and down beside the living room curtains. He looked up absent-mindedly and gave me a brief wave. It was good to be off on a trip, and I sang as I walked down the lane to catch the train. The autumnal tints of tree and bushes swirled about my feet with the falling leaves, and the warm air had a new freshness in it, hint of coming winter. I paused to rearrange my bags more comfortably, then picked up a fair speed, and walking quickly past the farm cottages, I headed for the main road, which would take me to the station. As I passed Joseph's cottage, I saw him in the garden. He had his foot on a spade and was smoking his pipe with his back to the gate, absorbed in his digging. What looked like the beginnings of a bonfire smouldered away in a pile beside him, and amidst the wreaths of bonfire and tobacco smoke he looked vague and ethereal, a figure shrouded in cloud. He turned, hearing footsteps in the quiet lane, and saw me through the smoke. He raised a hand in greeting and then went back to his digging. I wondered if he had heard about Hester's baby and if he would care. Perhaps I ought to tell him. I stopped by the gate and carefully lowered my bags to the ground. He turned again and peered through the smoke, surprised to see me stop. Politely, with an inquiring smile, he came towards me, looming up out of the smoke like a phantom assuming human form. He took his pipe from his mouth and gravely nodded to me. "Morning, Abby. Off to town, are you?" "Hello, Joseph," I said lamely, suddenly wondering what on earth I had got to say after all. I decided to let the moment take its own course and then go. I would leave him to find out about the baby from Mother, Father or the vicar, anyone but me. I could not say it. "No," I said. "I'm going over Truro on the train." He nodded. "Oh," he said. He tapped his pipe out on the gatepost and the spent tobacco fluttered to the ground. "To see Hester," I told him. He nodded again. His eyes fell upon my bags. "Taken a few things from Mother," I added awkwardly. I wondered whether he could see the contents from his angle. "When's the big day then?" he asked. I swallowed. "Big day?" "When's it due? She's having a little one, isn't she?" "Christmas," I said. So he knew. There was a silence. Awkward on my part, but not on Joseph's, I don't think. He had a quality of stillness about him, so that silence hung about him always. With everyone else I'd ever known, silence was a clumsy, embarrassing thing, a vacant gap between reassuring noises. With Joseph, it was the reverse. It was speech that intruded. He was like the earth itself, profound, recondite. I had a sudden strange thought of Hester lying in the earth one day, safe in Joseph's arms, and faint and unbidden, the memory came back to me of her extraordinary words that Christmas in the churchyard. I shook myself for being foolish and dragged my attention back. Joseph was speaking to me slowly, as he always did, with his warm voice. "That was a proper supper your mother gave me the other week, Abby. Tell her," a chuckle crept into his voice, "she do make a lovely pie." His kind grey eyes were gazing at me clearly, with nothing to be read there but quietness and that rare quality of calm he had. Perhaps his turn of phrase was just coincidence, but hadn't I said those very words to Mother in the kitchen after supper? "You make a lovely pie?" "I'll tell her," I said in thinly veiled confusion, and bent to pick up my bags. I turned to go, but he stopped me with a word. "Abby!" He paused, as if an idea had come to him, laid his pipe on the gatepost and motioned me to wait. "There's something here belongs to her. Perhaps you'd better take it to her for me." He turned and went into the house, scraping his boots lightly on the step, and returned almost immediately with something in his hands. It was a smallish wooden object, and with it he had brought a paper bag. I looked down at it in his fine, strong hands. "For the kiddie," he said by way of explanation, but I needed none. I watched him put the object carefully into the paper bag. He handed it to me, picked up his pipe, and with a brief wave went back to his digging, and I went on my way. Further up the road and out of sight, I took it out and looked at it. It was a baby's rattle, a lovely piece of workmanship, fashioned with skill and a good deal of hard work, no doubt. It was made in pear wood, with patterns round the handle and a smooth, polished top jointed in 2 places. Inside was something that jingled and chimed when it was moved or turned. The day that had seemed so fresh and fine when I set out seemed sombre now, and the bright trees bent over in the lane and dropped their dead leaves and wept. I tucked the rattle in its paper bag into the deep safety of my basket and stepped out into the road which would take me to the station. And all the way to Truro in the train, I cried.